And we're back yet again. This is now the final chapter of Master Detective Archives Rain-Code. This is chapter 5, and then I was gone. Well, technically there's a chapter afterward, but we'll talk
Whoops.
about that.
What's funny about that is ignore the pickup in the music. I think we can summarize this whole discussion with Pete was right last time. The end.
We called every single part.
No. We're all right. That's the end.
Yes.
All of our fan theories came true in this chapter.
And what's funny is I do feel like, so I'll never know because I didn't play it sans our conversations, but I do feel like even the act of conversing between each chapter really helps you kind of like flesh out and think about, what's going on in the story and what happened. So I do think part of our prognostication success was actually a byproduct of the discussions themselves.
I know by myself I did not pick up on things nearly as quickly as the group of you did.
The other part is it's me.
Well, yes. Well, yeah. Well, I'm discounting you from this conversation, Pete, because it was always assumed you'd get everything anyway.
But I will say that, even in our discussions, like the discrepancy in the blood color, it was like brought up. I mean, it was always there for you, but it was like mentioned in the discussion, right? So like, that's one of those things that if one of us kind of chose to sweep it under the rug, so to speak, just the discussion in and of itself reminds each of us. So
now, in a previous conversation, we all discussed about the pink blood and how that's a common trope for these type of games. Which then that threw me off when it was actually a barreled question, being like, "What's the difference between a homunculus blood and a human blood?" I'm like, "Oh well, pink. It's all pink."
It's obvious. What's
obvious?
Yes.
Well, I mean, he makes the not to jump ahead, but he makes the point saying to Shinigami, when I first saw a corpse, I was just like, is this a dead body? And you were like, yeah, this is a dead body. And she's like, yeah, because it was a dead person. I don't care what color the blood is.
Right. They were throwing it out there
great.
right in the beginning.
But that's also one of those intentional sleights of hand where, or I'll say there was enough ambiguity in his statement, right? He didn't say, does the blood always look like this? He just said, is it always like this? Well, what is it?
But they did a great job, which is the perfect cherry on top about blood, is that part of the first case, the train case, is about your blood being on the handle, and that blood was red.
Also, your blood is always red when she slices your throat.
But that is also...
Labyrinth.
But that's also plausibly explained away by being in the mystery labyrinth.
Right.
The only time it's ever seen to be read in the real world.
I completely overlooked that part. Oops.
Now, one thing since we're on the blood color, and I think a meandering discussion is acceptable here, so to speak. I was actually kind of bugged by Makoto's blood being pink, because I thought specifically the color was a function of a defective homunculus, not any homunculus.
Yeah, I don't think that they specified that only defective homunculi have pink blood.
They did not. They said all homunculi, no matter defective ones, are pink blood, no matter what.
They also, I guess what threw me off a bit, but then I sort of hand-waved it and I said, it doesn't really matter. Because they were speculating as to why it was pink. Now, the why it was pink was to throw off the people who played Danganronpa, but in game, it was pink. I think they said effectively to tell the difference between humans and homunculi. What got me slightly confused for a little bit is that he was the unified government homunculus, not a Kanai ward homunculus, and therefore he does not have to have pink blood. It could be any color.
So
that's a slight shift on mine. Go ahead.
In the notes, it was when you found Vivia's body. Not really.
Yes,
but yeah.
Exactly, yes.
It says there's only one way to tell a homunculus and a human apart. Blood. Homunculi have special characteristics to their blood.
They did not specifically say only Kane word homunculi have this pink blood. They
They also didn't say what the
homunculi
special
have it.
characteristic is.
Yes. Well, part of that was they didn't want to spell out what the answer was until you got into the mystery labyrinth. Again, this is the weird layers of meta narrative going on with the blood.
Yeah,
So,
I was trying to see if I could go to the right.
Yeah. By the way, if you were somebody who was pretty keen on the blood thing beforehand, if you notice all of the other master detective corpses have pink blood,
Pink blood.
which and now you were always going, and I was personally going, oh, are they dead? Aren't they dead? You weren't sure. You felt like this was a setup, but you weren't 100%. But all of the bodies have pink blood splatters like that.
oh,
Yep.
I'm a fool. Okay.
Well, like you don't. You were at
You don't know.
At this point, you're not.
You also don't.
Suspect,
You
but
also
it's-
don't know if they're homunculi.
Yeah, that would be an interesting twist as well.
Oh, I 100%. I was at this point saying, all right, it's either a 50-50, they're dead, really, or they're dead. Like, they're real dead or fake dead. Because, like, disguise guy, what's his name again?
Yasuhiko.
Hiko.
Siko. He was way too detailed note oriented, and then from there also Fabaku. And I was like, no, absolutely not. These are against their character access. They will never take down these great notes.
Fubuki explicitly wrote in the note, I have no idea what this means, but I'm just writing this down from a computer screen.
She would still forget how much she's writing down during the middle of it.
Oh, that was hilarious.
Yeah, so for whatever reason, though, when I read, it's funny how sometimes you read, like, it's just like one of those phenomena, right? You read into it what you're expecting, right? So when I saw this, because I was just stuck on the difference between the unified government homunculi, because that was the earlier portion of this kind of, right, Vivia's note to you. So I was like stuck on, oh, well, the blood color is only associated with
the defect,
the defective homunculus, but that's just the sunlight problem. Come to find out, there was another instance of, well, I won't jump yet. I'll stop.
The sunlight problem and the zombie problem.
No.
Should we bring it back to the zombies?
Zombie problem is what spells out the defect. The two things spell out the defect: sunlight and zombies. When they die, they don't come back with their memory right. They come back. Ugh. Though apparently they do wind up coming back eventually. If you notice the former Amaterasu president.
Exactly, I was about to mention that.
He was pretty normal.
Precise.
It took him a while. It took him like years to get better.
3 years, yeah.
So that's where I have a big question. What's the deal with Yako then? Like, is he gonna suddenly like get better because he died, but he's you can not die as a homunculus, and then he's sort of like in that weird state where he could hand the CD, but he still can't really even talk. Like, is he eventually gonna come back to normal?
Nope.
I think so.
I'm sure Mikado has an answer for all the zombie homunculi in the restricted word. He had a complete answer for all the normal homunculi,
Homunculi, we got you.
Yeah, I think. And then from there, he had an answer for everything for them. So I'm sure he would be thinking of an answer for all the zombie ones. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's a rank code, like Chapter 2 type of deal.
I would say if this guy can get better, any of them can eventually get better.
They specify that it's on a case-by-case basis how badly the reanimation affects you. So some people, particularly plot-specific people, will be better off as a homunculus than others.
Another good example is Zilch was killed via the grimoire, via the Book of Death. And Zilch is messed up, but he's still a lot better off than some of them. And he's been dead longer than the rest.
The three drama people were also killed by the book, and they're complete zombies.
But they were killed more recently. I think that it's a function of recency and, but they don't spell any of it out.
No, because I think Fink kind of goes against that, right? Fink was able to talk to you. And
Was
he
not
died
killed by
after.
the book.
Oh,
Yeah, he was.
you're saying by the book. No, he wasn't killed by the book. It's kind of implied that Makoto offs him somehow.
Yeah.
Oh, you're talking about the assassin. My bad. I thought you were talking about the guy with the wolf ears in the first case.
He's also a hitman, but a different hitman.
True. There was two hitmen.
The other hitman.
We had good times, didn't we?
So where was it took him 3 years to recover? Where did that come from? Like I don't remember that.
He died. He was killed after Makoto was made president. So you can assume that when Makoto was made president, he then was killed. Well, he does it.
Yomi kills him. It's implied.
Okay. Yeah, no, I definitely did not pick up.
They do a callback to when Makoto tells you that the former Amaterasu president was murdered. And he believes that Yomi did it. There it is.
I guess is that.
Oh, so he was probably a homunculi that was done by a blood test compared to.
They were all homunculi at that point.
Oh, that's true. That's true. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think if we go into here.
Yep, there's Fink. No, wait, that's Zilch.
No, this is Zilch. And right here, this is where they explain that some. Because this is really all they offer.
Another example. I can't remember the name of her friend Aiko, who was murdered a long time ago.
Yeah.
She said that she was able to talk to Aiko to some degree.
That's true. I do remember that.
When did she say that?
She says it somewhere in here.
When
Right
you
at the
find
beginning?
her afterward. No. After you go down the path and see all the pods.
Reunited with Kurumi, probably.
Go down the path and see.
Oh, do you have a file called Reunited with Kurumi?
Yeah, that's what I. Well,
there you go. It would probably be there.
Yeah, it's right there.
Passed away 6 months ago. She looked and talked differently from how I remembered.
Yeah. So it implies better off than the
other girls.
Now, interesting hint to what's going on very early in the chapter with the three here. Let's see.
This was amazing for me. See, like them being the introduction zombies, I was like, yes, thank you. It is zombies.
And then all the zombies of the people from the third case.
Then
Sachi.
The fourth case.
Yep.
So I
and
didn't
you meet the
notice it,
priest.
but-
Who's a
the
little
priest.
bit calmer than the other ones until you talk to him.
And he gets kind of mad.
Yeah, what I read, and I didn't notice it, and I didn't go back to look for it, is that when the zombies go after them, they never go after Kurumi. They only go after Makoto, which makes sense.
Makes sense.
Given that
He's
she
got the
is
right
a-
kind of meat.
Correct. So that was a purported hint, but I guess I don't recall a scene where it's obvious that they're going
I don't
after
remember that.
him and not her.
Oh man, he flops.
Him doing a swan dive.
I love that.
And then from there, the copycat nail guy.
Oh, that's when I hit the wrong button.
Oh, nice.
Oh, nice.
Oh, they just
Well,
keep
they
you
don't
pinned.
They just keep you pinned.
Is that it?
And then it's like,
Oh,
try again. Yeah. So yeah, it just keeps you pinned. And yeah, so I guess that. Now, one other thing, back on the detectives being dead, right? So I immediately said that's not the detectives because they have pink blood. Because those bodies have pink blood. But apparently one of the other meta hints is that, and I didn't do this, but if you go into the menu and look at the profiles, you know how they
they're
have
alive.
You have an X through everyone who's dead? There's no X through them.
Oh, that's
never-
So
That is a zero escape fucking key
Yes,
right there. Holy shit.
I did not actually go back and confirm. I only read about it. But
To fill
I read
Aaron
so
in,
much on it.
there's another series of games where there's serious death going on, and some of the ways that you find out who's alive and who's dead are just going into the menu and seeing who's alive and who's dead, and a lot of it is just like very revelatory afterward. If you've gone through the game, you're like, oh wow, oh they're dead. You find this out as you're playing, but if you're going through the menus routinely, you're just like, oh yeah, they're dead. It shows you that they're dead.
But you have no reason to.
Exactly.
I
Just
think
like
I
this
shared
game,
it
you have no
before.
reason to.
Yeah.
I think I shared it before, but I'm going to say it again. I was a coin flip about if they were actually dead or not. I was so like, in my mind, I'm like, oh god, they're dead. This game is very good at killing people off. They're actually dead.
I had a
then
feeling
my
it was all
other
a
part
big
of my
put-up.
body, it was like the whole notes were just to set up the fact that Makote is doing something to say how he's innocent throughout the whole entire time.
I felt like he was leading you to be able to solve the mystery because he exactly wanted you to solve the mystery. And
Exactly
the
now,
end result of it would be something that you could not deal with, which is pretty true. Except he underestimated you big time. Because he thought he was you and you were him, but you're not him.
Right, he's making assumptions about Yuma's personality based on his own, because he knows that he is the homunculus of, and they have the same genes. So it's kind of that whole like nature versus nurture kind of underlying theme that's all over like Metal Gear, right? It's over a lot of these stories.
It's funny. The clip that Snooty had shared earlier about his view of prayer, I think sums it all up. He has a mindset that he relies on no one else, and no one relies on. Yeah.
You know what's interesting about that phrase? When you leave in chapter 3 after he rescues you, what does he do every hour? He prays. Prays hourly for the people of Kanai Ward.
It's solitary.
And this is, and then when he talks about this is reinforcing the fact that he believes he's the only person who can do this. And
so you're saying right here, when you're first leaving the tower at the beginning,
when you're walking through the streets at the end of chapter 3.
Sorry, he has to go. Sorry, I gotta go. I pray at the top of every hour.
Yep. And then what does he say about prayer? Prayer is the loneliest activity one can partake in. Even if your friends prayed, none of you would reach another.
Right, but that also already shows a despairing, right? That
yes.
I mean, he clearly thinks that even though he does it for whatever reason he chooses to do it, because I certainly forgot that, he's convinced it does nothing and will not reach.
Right? He's going to carry that load, and he's the only one who's going to carry that load.
That is what he believes. This goes back to very, very JRPG, that one person believes that they can do everything by themselves because that's the only way, and the good guys rely on the power of friendship.
And Yuma, because he got reset to 0, had to rely on everybody else to help him, and therefore realizes that, despite the same genetics.
Right.
He viewed coalescence as a way to have other people help him, as opposed to Makoto's, or number 1's view of coalescence, as a way to use other people.
So during this scene, I was totally, because that's what we were just referring to, kind of, this is like when he hits his moment of despair and she kind of like kicks him out of it. And honestly, I didn't see this scene struck me as kind of inauthentic with kind of where Yuma had been developing, like why he would slip into kind of this despair. But I felt like they threw it in there because they wanted to have the "you're not alone" moment, and I was totally thinking of Final Fantasy IX. Like the first time I remember a game kind of having like right before the final battle, "You're Not Alone," was FF9, which is funny because FF4 had it too. So I mean,
Yep.
it's like this recurring thing. And this was kind of this game's moment of it. She even says, "You're not alone."
They're hammering it at home. And
Yeah,
ultimately, once Yuma has been inspired, he then inspires Makoto to do the right thing, to reveal the truth to everybody and rely on them to make a choice.
Yes.
Thus clearing up the mystery and thus fixing Kanai Ward. And assumedly they're not eating people anymore.
They're eating ramen.
They're eating ramen, which is not
I don't
made
know
of
how-
people.
I don't know how that
Yoko.
works. I don't know how that
Because
works though.
Remember, the true Yoko.
Yuma Coco Head.
Yes, Coco Head. Sorry, I'm very bad at names. The true Coco Head. He is a master chef, and so during the weird scenes where we see him at his ramen stand, you hear him quickly talk about like how he's learning how everyone here in the ward eats differently, and he specifically is making ramen to suit the homunculi's taste. So it was kind of forced. It was kind of left field. Also, I agree, but at least they did explain that.
What bugs me about it is, if it was so simple to just make something like that, why in the world are you making them eat people? Like, if you could just put a little bit of effort in, like,
Well,
you didn't have to really go there.
I do. Similar.
This is
to
part
that,
of taking it all on yourself. You have a solution. It's solved.
Yeah, but that's a pretty bad solution.
But to him, it was an okay solution because he literally was killing people who were only going to be killed anyway.
Yeah, but it definitely there's a lot to go in here about the point that the game was trying to make, and I'm not necessarily feeling like it did. It's a very inhuman thing to say it's okay to do that. So like, it actually shows the difference between a homunculi brain and a human brain, even though they try to make the point of, well, I might not really be a human, but I still have a human heart. That's not a very human heart to me.
Here's a correction on that one, though. Think about this. Number 1 made the exact same choice. He made the choice to take the book. He knew the book was going to kill people. It was okay to kill people that were guilty.
Yeah, no, it was only in his quote-unquote rebirth when he had to rely on other people that he awakened that
empathy.
Alternate,
I guess, yeah.
I feel like that's what they were going for, but
yeah, maybe that's because of number 1. That's why the homunculi is like that.
But on a different aspect of what you were getting at, I do really feel like this here was kind of a Deus Ex Machina moment where you have this huge. I feel like what they were going for to kind of hammer home that you're not alone, you can't carry it all on your own shoulders. If that's kind of like the underlying theme they're going for, I feel like they spent a lot of time in setting up like this unwinnable situation, right? Like you create this situation where there's no way out, and then
there's all this magical way out.
Machina moment, and right?
Yeah, I wasn't like. I enjoyed everything that they were doing, but I thought the epilogue and everything, I'm like, this is kind of taking a cheap way out. Like, if you think about the Dang It games, they go dark and they stay dark. This was like, let's just kind of fix it all and everything's fine. It's like, but it's really not. You're just kind of pretending that it's fine. It's really not.
Thank you. I'm glad I'm not the only one that thought the ending was way too like Disney type of ending.
Yes.
Everything became perfect the way it was. There was no consequences, and then from there, everyone's perfectly fine. Reveal. It was just a little jarring based on the rest of the game.
Yeah.
And again, I think a big thing of what they were going for kind of in the build-up is kind of this unwinnable situation, right? Like Makoto even says to Yuma sometime during the battle, right? Like, they didn't ask to be born, right? Like, as soon as the homunculus existed, it was a problem. right? Because you either right, it was like a rock and a hard place type problem. Either you kill them all, or let them go crazy, or whatever. You expose them to the sun, right?
And his choice as a homunculus himself was to save them at
or you make
any cost.
the choice, right? Or you make the choice he made, which was
right. Added to that though, and I guess this is kind of what's bothering me. I just watched the epilogue right before we started. Was it really good for Yako to die, and now he gets to be in this? Like, wouldn't it have been better if he could have just really died instead of being immortal in this horrible state? Like, I actually think they're making it seem like this is so happy and great, and I'm like, I think this is terrible to be alive forever like this.
He did really die.
I know, but he
was eaten by his homunculus.
No,
3 years ago.
Well, there's no.
I'm talking about his homunculi version.
Yeah, there's no guarantee that it was 1-to-1. Like, you don't know that.
No, though they did say that Dr. Huesca's homunculus ate Dr. Huesca,
So maybe they went seeking their other half. I don't know. I wasn't feeling this. Everything is great at the end. I'm like, it's not. Like, this isn't a good way to end this game. You had a lot of good things going, and this is not the way.
But again, I think part of the reason they took that path was the thematic piece of, hey, when you work together, you can even beat the unbeatable, right? Like, there's kind of that notion. It's just, I thought the ramen was a real, I don't want to say lazy, because when you set up that big of a problem, any escape's going to be cheap. Because it's kind of set up as an unwinnable problem.
Right. You either have to...
Which was the whole point.
Right. You either have to go so dark that everything gets destroyed, or you have to say, oh, we found this cheeky little way, like vegetarian vampires, that whole Twilight thing. We're going to give up meat now. We're just going to eat just going to eat animals instead of humans.
Well, remember, they also have self-conscious and beliefs, and also internal thoughts. And so they all said, hey, once we learned that meat buns were actually people, everyone gave them up because it was completely inhumane to eat them. Once they were told the truth, they said, we're done eating them. We're done. We're stepping away.
So they should have never been fed them in the first place. Like, why would Makoto do that if it wasn't necessary for them to eat human flesh? That's the question.
Because the research, that's the only thing that they knew at the time that could sustain them. They didn't bother to then research into it. It was only the true Yumi, the real Cocohead, came in and developed the correct answer.
I don't fully know the analogy for this, but this could be a matter of perspective. So when they came out with records were a certain size, and people had expectations of records being a certain size. I think it was called Laserdisc, which was the super massive CD that they came out with, and they invented that because they couldn't think of things being smaller than a record. And then what happened is somebody went around and said, hey, wait a minute, we can make these small. And then CDs were made. Now, I agree that the ending is a little bit saccharine here, that it is a tonal shift to that everything is sunshine and roses. And my immediate thought when she was saying she was going to leave to go after Yuma, I'm just like, well, way to waste your entire character. But then everybody's talking about it like it was fine. I'm like, oh, I guess it's fine.
Sunscreen, dude.
Yeah, it's sunscreen.
Yeah,
and a good raincoat.
They explained that too, but it felt right. There's aspects of it that felt lazy. Maybe lazy is not the right word. It just seemed cheap because they set up such a huge problem.
Yeah.
Right? Like, they had to set up a problem that could take down the greatest mind in the world. So it had to be this rock and a hard place, right? And then what I have on the screen here, hey, we'll entrust it to someone else. Okay, well, it's one thing to entrust it to someone else, but hey, get a scientist who can make some SPF.
Entrust it to everyone else.
And find a cook who just experiments and finds a way to supplement.
If I could.
Entrust it not just to someone else, but to everyone else. I mean, it says someone else, that's what he said. But what he means is, let everybody know, and let everybody figure it out.
Right, there's this piece here. Sorry, go ahead.
Also, Makoto only just had full control of the corporation a single half of a day until he then drugged us and tried to feed us to the zombies. So I'm sure now that he had full control, he had the ability to do more research afterwards. Again, I'm not trying to justify the ending. The ending, like I told you, was way too Disneyland for me. And
He didn't want to drug you and feed you to the zombies.
he wanted the truth. Yes.
He did not want that at all. That was not his goal.
In fact, the explanation they give for the master detectives being alive is that he brought them up to his penthouse where he knew they would be safe.
He wanted you to confront him. He wanted you to fix this. Or to die and let him do what he has to do. He wanted you gone or to fix it. He wanted it over.
Because I think, and this is left to interpretation, right? But I think there's an aspect of knowing that he's the homunculus of the greatest mind. In his mind, you're the only one I can turn to, the only one worthy of me turning to is the greatest mind.
Yep.
And it just so happens the greatest mind says, "Hey, I've been reborn, and everybody is the only one who can solve this problem. Like everybody working together." As pizza, the JRPG trope.
I was very impressed on how he tricked Yuma to do coalesces with him.
Help me over the pipe.
You want to help me? Give me a hand.
So what's
because
funny
Yuma
about
had
that,
no reason to think that anybody else could do that.
That caught me off surprise, and I was very happy about that.
So that's a decent segue to kind of the other thing that really, I don't want to say bugged me, but that it was like a misconception I had throughout the whole game, where somehow I had the misconception that was actually the correct conception, but the game wanted it to be a misconception, which is that coalescence is Shinigami's power. I never ever thought it was Shinigami's power, so I don't know where I missed it. I always thought it was Yuma's. So,
Yuma kept saying that it was her power, because clearly couldn't have been him, because he's not a master detective.
Because she's the one that told him about the power, so I assumed it was her power also.
They keep describing it as a forte, though. And that was, for me, what associated it to Yuma rather than Shinigami. But they did keep... Yuma specifically kept pushing that power onto Shinigami whenever it comes up.
So the interesting hint that they give you again in the menus, and I actually noticed this one, for Forte under Yuma, it says none. And actually the only reason I noticed this is because I went back because I was convinced that it said coalescence starting in chapter 1 when you actually activate it with Halara the first time. I was convinced that it had it under his profile, so I went back to convince myself, and lo and behold, it's not there under Yuma's. It says none or unknown or something. But under Shinigami, fortes are mystery labyrinth interaction and coalescence question mark. They like to have a question mark on coalescence, but not on mystery labyrinth interaction. Right. So again, one of those kind of like menu hints that they give you kind of throughout the game, if you're open to it.
What's the menu? I haven't touched the menu the whole entire game.
You got any videos of the menu?
No, I actually think I deleted it. But actually, maybe let me go to the recycle bin. Maybe the recycle bin has them.
Menus where you go to save and load.
But then
That's
there's
the
other
only thing
things.
I did with them. Yeah.
Sometimes you can go back on the menu and see the things that were said before.
Oh, is that my emotional support animal in the background? Yes, it is. Thank you, buddy, for helping me during the meat bun section.
Heard him barking, and I just couldn't stop grinning.
So we moved on the prayer thing, but like the interesting thing. So it was funny when he made that comment, because for me it just seemed like a very. I'll say this: I have a perception of, like, I remember that scene jumping out at me because my initial reaction to his statements were, well, he clearly has a misconception of what prayer is, right? I think
There's something interesting about that, though, which is, I watch a lot of, NHK Japan, so a lot of the Japanese documentaries. They do a lot of praying, but like, it's not actually like they'll say God, but it's almost like they just think they're putting it out into the atmosphere.
Well, so
So they have a different, like there's a Japanese,
spin on it. No,
right, a conception of what prayer is that's different.
So has anyone here seen the movie Your Name?
Not yet.
No. Okay.
Yeah, don't bring that up.
So I'd say one of the thing, without saying or spoiling too much, I'll say just one of the themes that I kind of pulled from that, like, it is sort of this idea that there's sort of a transcendent connection between people. Think like Lifestream Final Fantasy VII. Think like Final Fantasy Spirits Within. Think like Your Name. Like, I can think of multiple kind of Japanese stories that kind of take this kind of understanding of like a transcendent connectedness between people, right? That seems to fly in the face of that skepticism about prayer. Like, however you define prayer, right? Like, of course, we define it in a Christian context, and I think that was kind of what Maria was responding to. But even a non-Christian context, right? I think there's a lot of games and Japanese stories that I've partaken in that kind of imply this connection between people at a transcendent level, I think is the way I'll say it.
So prayer shouldn't be lonely.
Correct, because there's sort of this, like, whether it's Gaia or the earth or like somehow
your prayers are supposed to do something.
Right.
But when you're the smartest person around and nobody else is helping you.
Well, that's sort of a rejection of the spiritual for the material, right? Which is...
Well, he's all material, isn't he? If he's a homunculi. I mean, that's all.
He is the product of science, right?
Yeah.
The whole point of that message is what I interpret it as is you can pray all you want, but there is no God. So there's no one to listen to you pray for.
I interpreted that more as no matter how much you or anybody else prays towards anything, you can't hear what other people are saying and they can't hear you. And in the end, you're alone.
Yes.
Thus you start the Human Instrumentality Project.
Oh boy.
Sorry, Evangelion reference. Because once again, it deals with that same thing.
Yes, it does.
Well, no, but the Human Instrumentality Project proves that we are not alone. Unfortunately, we're all a sea of LCL.
Yeah, when we all melt into a pool, that's a different... Okay.
Oh, Lord, that was horrible.
No clue what you guys are saying.
Oh, you should watch Ava. It's a good show.
It's a good train wreck of an anime. It was also like one of the big anime of the 90s into 2000s. So one of the few animes back then to hit the mainstream, back when like your anime choices was Gundam, Dragon Ball Z,
Trigun.
Trigun on Adult Swim.
Trigun was so good.
Yeah, it was whatever. It was whatever.
Star.
Sailor Moon.
Oh yeah, definitely watch Ava. I think it's on Netflix if you got Netflix.
It's a trip. Pack your bags.
It's gonna hurt. It's gonna hurt bad.
Definitely not kid appropriate then, right?
No.
Don't watch it with your kids. It's too sad.
I will say that's actually the first anime I watched, so it always stuck with me, just like the themes and whatnot. Like, anyway, but I think that's all I had on the prayer thing.
It's funny, the prayer thing. John had mentioned the Makoto actually praying because he said that he did. You also have the little snippet from the already dead criminal that you take a piece off of their body. You assume that it's written by a dead criminal, where it mentions that everyone's crying as they pray to God.
Oh, I don't remember that.
Where am I? Where am I being taken to? Everyone here is a dangerous criminal that deserves the death sentence. That ruthless killer. That vile kidnapper. Everyone's crying as they pray to God. Will we be serving our sentences here together with no trial?
Well, that
Shit.
seems to be one.
If only we'd never been caught by the WDO. They locked us up in here like animals. Those bastards. We were brought here by the WDO's #1. He's called the world's greatest mind, isn't he?
Yeah, so even that, like, this idea of, well, they were going to die anyway. Well, we don't even know if these guys are actually guilty. It's like the whole thing was...
It was
The
implied
whole point.
that they were.
Well,
yeah,
here's
whole
the
point
thing,
was
right?
of the-
Here's the thing, and maybe I'm going too far with it, but studying the Japanese justice system as I have, and actually their death penalty system as well, there's a lot of innocent people in Japanese jails, I'm just going to say.
Well, so
There's a reason why the game Phoenix Wright was created.
It's a good thing this is the World Detective Organization.
Yeah, because they're real sound in their...
Sounds like the UG is really corrupted also.
Right, the fact that they would create inhuman monsters...
But the WDO and the UG are not the same thing.
I know, but I'm just saying, like, this smells of, like, really serious human violations. It made me very uncomfortable.
See, it's interesting that this is coming up because I didn't think of that kind of thread of the thematic elements in that context when that scene happened. However, there was, I feel like the most overt exploration of it was with Martina. You know, her, you know, in chapter 2, you see her, you know, kind of with the might makes right, you know, you don't need justice when you have power, etc., or whoever has power makes the justice, so to speak. And then at the end of chapter 4, when she is spared and comes back,
she changes her whole
she reads
tune.
basically the Miranda rights, right? So it kind of shows like this turnaround in her perspective. And then if you at the end of the game go into the profiles again, I spent a little time afterwards, and there's like the likes dislikes for Martina at the end of the game. It says likes justice or something like it flips it, like
That's good.
they kind of hit that home with her. So it wasn't like a big thread of the story, but it was kind of like this minor thread.
It was
throughout, and they kind of tied off at the end if you happen to read that.
Right, we were focused on that a little bit during that case, and then they just went in other threads.
Right,
but it's like they set that up for like maybe you're not always like prosecuted. I mean, they kept picking the wrong people the whole time. And now I know these are different organizations, but I guess I'm just too cynical to say, oh, well, this organization gets it right.
But I feel like that was Martina's thread.
Yeah.
That's sort of what I mean. Like when they chose to not put her in chapter 5, that thread in my mind
died off. Yeah.
Also, Yomi. He had no desire to have justice.
I was looking for
He just
Yomi
wanted to
during
crush
chapter 5
everyone.
also.
Yomi wasn't killed.
He was
Hey,
turned
what
into a
happened-
meat cube.
What happened to the guy in the bell tower? That guy.
The father?
No, the peacekeeper guy. Did he get killed?
Seth Burrows?
Yeah.
Huh.
Oh, he was in the cutscene of all the homunculi. Like,
Yeah, he's dead.
Oh, he
during the
was.
blank
Okay.
week.
I missed him.
But yeah,
Yomi
he's-
killed him.
Yeah, I was wondering
Surprise.
if he actually ended up killing him. I figured he did, but I missed him.
Was the guy from Chapter 0 there? Oh, what the hell
No,
is his
I
name?
did not see Hellmouth there. No.
Hellmouth.
What was his name? Hank?
Wayne Castanel.
Castanel. Swank.
I don't think he was.
Ah, Swank survived. Thank God.
Swake was again in the cutscene where they show all the people becoming homunculi or being replaced by homunculi.
Oh, well, I mean, everybody was homunculus.
Where was that scene that you're talking about?
So it's further up, near the end.
Near the end of the investigation part?
By the fence?
Yeah. Not by the fence, but in the meat package factory.
So when you're in the factory, there's like a flashback scene?
There's a scene when they talk about the blank week. I think the reunion of her, yeah.
Oh, so back when they're reunited towards the end.
Yeah.
So you come back. There's a Huesca video. Well, is it the Fink discussion?
I love the Think discussion, which basically says Makoto did it all.
It was
right.
not. It was not tied explicitly. It was all assumed until then.
I knew it'd be a test job, but I couldn't refuse. Makoto Kagutsuchi introduced me.
Introduced him.
Right, so he was pulling the strings.
Yeah, well, somebody said that last time.
All of I just enjoy the fan theories of like, hey, you know, we're all homunculi. We are. We are number one. We are. Mikado is number one also. It's confirmed.
So, what was I looking for here? I admit I forgot. Yako?
No, not Yako, the Peacekeeper from the Bell Tower case.
Oh yeah, so there's a cutscene around here? I totally don't remember that. Is it the mass blood test?
He said it was near the blank week.
I'm looking also, but if we want to talk about something else, once I find out, I'll bring it to your attention.
Well, I will say this. I very much enjoyed the whole creepy village, the factory. Like, it really did actually scare me. I'm like, I feel like I'm playing Resident Evil 2 all over again.
Speaking of which, did you catch the reference of the herbs?
So
Yes.
I was annoyed by that obtuse reference, but they made one just for me.
That was an obtuse reference?
Where
this is the one they made for me, so I don't care.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
You can, because the thing is that the red and green are, first off, they did it twice, which is whatever, but also they were voiced and they were on the main road. So that was the Resident Evil point at it.
Yeah, I totally did not.
And there's the Silent Hill point.
The knob broken is a Silent Hill reference.
Yeah, the door doesn't seem locked, but the knob's broken, so we can't get through. Hilarious.
I will say this. You should never, ever look at the soundtrack when you're playing a game, because the track Sunny Kanai Ward, I'm like, okay, this means the sun is going to come out. And that definitely told me, okay, the sun is a problem for all of them. I'm like, why am I looking at the soundtrack? Big mistake.
Okay, I found it.
He found it.
Where is it at?
So it's after you do the first picture book thing.
After, you mean Deshiko's body? Oh, you mean in the Mystery Labyrinth?
Yeah, in the Mystery Labyrinth. When you first deduct when you first solve the first mystery.
Oh yeah, and that's where the implication of Huesca killing Huesca was.
Wait, where is it? The scene? Right here?
Is this what you're referring to? The fact that he's behind
Yep.
it?
That's the only time you see them, yeah.
Where do you,
that's basically saying everybody in Kanai Ward was replaced.
Yes.
Also, the word replaced. That friggin' barrel puzzle.
Dude,
replaced. That's not the word I would use to say what happened. They were all murdered.
What's pretty funny about that is there was one barrel puzzle where I had to redo it, and I'm pretty sure that was because even though I knew exactly what was going on, I'm like, what word are they looking for?
This is the dang in last case issue that you know what the answer is, but you have to figure out the wording that they want to give you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I had no idea what it was. I definitely failed that one and had to do it again.
With my skills, it was really obvious what it was. It was replaced because of the fact that all.
Oh, did it knock out a bunch of the other ones? I see.
It was so easy for me.
Oh yeah, the full barrel, you're screwed.
Yeah. I hate that barrel burning passion, so I just invested into not dealing with it.
Another instance where, like, if you're ahead of the game, you get it wrong is there's this one right here. Who is the person with the world's greatest mind? So what did you guys pick?
Number one.
Well, I picked Makoto.
Who is the person with the world's greatest mind? But
you have to have the evidence with it. Yeah.
Right. Which
What was
is
it? The
doc-
memo on
I think-
corpse?
It was a memo of corpse. Yeah.
It was memo on corpse, but so if you watch, I get it wrong because I pick Makoto. Then it goes back, and then I got to start reading through let me scroll through. Which one has
You
it?
always have to read through them. That's the problem.
Yeah, it's like, but it's Makoto. I know. Why are you?
Right.
Some stuff like that during the battle things as well. We have to read 5 paragraphs of what a solution key is.
Right.
In
if
this
you don't have
final-
the skills.
The cutscenes, interactive cutscenes they need to give you a little bit like an extra second or two.
Oh God, is this
It is.
replaced?
Yep, this is replaced.
Oh God.
But I think this is the second time. I think yeah. See, it like speeds up, it slows down. Oh no, this is I
Yeah.
got it wrong.
All right. Good. You're as screwed as I am.
I'm like, what?
What word do they want out of me?
But
Murdered? Killed?
but the worst part about it is the later barrel puzzle. Actually, before I go there, I do want to point something out that struck me. In the earlier cases, she like smiles and stuff. She has a very severe, like she never smiles. It's just like a very severe like look on her face. That was a notable difference. And they got the Twilight thing going on instead of like the broad daylight. So I felt like those were kind of some interesting kind of.
You at one point said, "I think this is the last time we'll be working together." I'm like, how do you know?
Foreshadow.
Because my script
brain
is
is
only so
mine.
much longer.
But dude, this one, you couldn't pick something better than like you could have no clue what's going on and get this one right.
There are a couple of those. Like
You could
when
have
the
no clue.
in case 3, they go, and why was the gun different? It's because it was blank handed.
Right.
Like,
So you know it's
Yeah.
either left
two
or right.
answers to this, and right is 5 letters. So you feel robbed in a way, because if you figured it out normally and then they just hand you the answer in a way that's not handing you the answer, it's like, but I figured this out normally.
Right, like you totally backdoor it because it's like, how can I get it wrong?
Yeah. So there was a couple moments like that.
Yeah, so I was bugged by that on this one because I think this was the last Shinigami puzzle in the game too. It's like
It's an easy one.
you couldn't make it any easier. Anyway,
Maybe that was the point. So they wanted you to be all into the character and not necessarily the gameplay.
that's okay. For the RDM here, dude, some of these took me forever because
Oh yeah, definitely.
This is
These are
you get all these freaking choices and they all have like
This is what I'm
17
talking about.
paragraphs you got to read. It's
That's exactly what I'm talking about. You have to, through the battle thing, you have to read all of the stuff.
even with the list shortened, and they say something about like, oh, homunculi are not real. Well, here's evidence that they're real, but it's not what we're looking for. It's once again,
Right.
It was.
Uh-uh.
Have you ever seen homunculi? I'm like, yeah, I have evidence clearly showing, like, all the evidence points to it being real. Hello, emotional support animal. Yes. Anyways, so yeah, it's just. It was weird that they, of course, wanted it to answer the way they wanted it.
Yeah. But dude, what I think it was this one. There was like this series in the middle where I essentially knew what was going on and I could not freaking figure it out. So this was me going back and doing it cleanly because it literally, my first video was like 20 minutes of me stumbling and fumbling around. I'm like, this is just a waste of storage space.
Yeah, I didn't have a problem solving these things and going through these more than I did that barrel thing. That barrel thing just drove me insane. It's just like, what word do you want me to say that they killed everyone and then took their place? Oh, replace. That's a nice euphemism for what you did. You ate people.
Right.
Also, I don't understand how was there anything that really, because I had watched Aaron's playthrough, was there anything that really stumped people on any of this stuff?
I'll say
Like any concept that was just like, I don't get it now.
There was one.
Which was?
It was during one of these negotiation with the Mystery Phantom of Yuma. It was a really off. Let me look at it real fast. I'll get back to you.
It only really got outside the boxy around case 4. Now, case 0 had a couple of moments where you had to sort of piece things together, but some of that was that the evidence wasn't really presented in a way, and so you were doing some of the figuring out in the mystery lab, which did happen in all the cases. But case 4 was probably the one where if you didn't go in knowing enough about what was going on, that you would struggle with some of the puzzles. And then 1, 2, and 3, you would, even if you didn't know the specifics, like you had enough working knowledge of things to sort of piece through things as you went.
Yeah, my answer to that one was, I hope that case 5 was straightforward enough with all the stuff they give you ahead of time. And I was wondering if anybody had problems putting it all together.
No, I would say it all started falling into place pretty quickly during the investigation for me. But I think in part that was aided by, we had like the previous discussions about like maybe Yuma's number 1.
Who everybody is and what's going on.
Right. Or that maybe like, I think one of my earlier theories was that like they were like a split consciousness put into like homunculus shells or something. Again, not right.
Which is basically the way homunculi work. In that they're given a copy of your consciousness.
Well, they're a snapshot in time.
Yeah.
And then there's a divergence, right? It's like a fork point.
Yep.
But then they went back and destroyed the other fork, the other tie-in of the fork.
In all cases except for Yuma, apparently.
Right, because he was not defective.
Also, he was not present in Kanai Ward to be eaten by his defective homunculus, which wasn't defective.
Right. So, but it's
well,
funny
Makoto might eat him. I don't know.
Yes,
could have got hungry.
It's definitely gonna happen. Definitely.
He had to inherit his powers.
So again, kind of like back on the, back on kind of like the setup and like what they were trying to do there. I guess it was kind of right with that whole idea of like all the homunculus eating each other, eating the real people. One thing that bugged me a little bit about that you just had to push the I believe button on was, where'd all the bodies go? Like, where'd all the bodies go? The blood go? Like, why did they, like, so that week when they're all going crazy is the blank week, right? And then they kill all of the real people and then they snap out of it. Wouldn't there be like,
why would there be bodies?
Right, tons of human remains.
Why would there be tons of human remains?
The only wreckage, like they said that there was like a tornado that went through the whole entire town and also inside their houses at the same time. But other than that, they seemed like they just woke up.
There's a convenient place that the remains would be.
Oh, so you're saying Makoto shipped them all off in that week?
No, the remains would be inside of them.
No.
There'd still be blood and bones, though.
Oh, you're talking about blood and bones.
Correct.
So you don't know that blood and bones are a natural state of what happens when a crazy homunculus eats a person. All you know is that that's what Makoto left behind.
True.
They could just consume them down to the bones, for all you know.
There was a key for the nutrition of a...
Yes, people are part of a required balanced diet.
Right.
And I think
every last piece of them, apparently.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Right. No,
I had no choice. They must eat in order to survive.
Makoto says that?
At one point, yes. When he's got his... Oh my god. So, one of
The
the
mask?
comments that one of the comments that I had made prior to playing this chapter was, I hope that Makoto gets a moment like every good antagonist in one of these series, like Junko, like, you know what I mean,
Yeah.
where the face is just the masks, all of the masks, and then his real face.
I particularly think of one of the Dangan games. I won't say anymore, but where there's a lot of that going on. But yeah, there's all the different there's all the different colors as you go through the fight. No, I thought they did a good job with this fight.
Get to the purple mask with the red eye.
Then there's the blushing cheek one.
Mm-hmm.
And
This one.
There was an off comment in the car where he's like, I have mini mask.
oh, did he? I don't remember.
Yeah, he
that.
said that
He
in
did
the
say.
car heading.
That was probably fun.
One of the loading
for anyone who
screens,
played it.
I think, also one of the loading screen tips, I think, makes reference to this too.
So it's funny that you guys bring up the loading screen tips. They do not appear for me.
Yeah, okay.
Mine fly by way too fast.
No,
Oh.
but it's not even that. There is no text in my version. Like in the PS5 version, there is no text.
Weird.
It's just the WDO logo.
You should go back and play the Switch version.
Just to get the.
It's all loading tips.
And then the.
It's only a joke
then
because
let's
it's
see. And then there's even more masks later on. Before
Absolutely.
You start to right?
Well, he gets
Right,
the
then
angry mask.
The angry Oni mask.
Yep,
And then there's one more. Oh, the question mark.
the question mark mask, which was all right. That's basically who am I, you fool.
Right. Which is funny because again, that's where I'm like. But
Then there's the
coalescing-
final Shinigami puzzle.
What
Barrel
was the
puzzle.
purpose of this one? The one like you either click on his mask or click on his wound that you received? To me, it was like, it's quite obvious it's not a mystery phantom, but they kept going on and on and on and on how he's a mystery phantom.
I had picked up on the touching hands moment, so for me it was even more kind of like.
There was also
I
he
did
moved
not. after
after you went into the mystery labyrinth, which Aaron, you totally picked up on because you started going.
Okay. Yes,
That was great.
because I thought he had some sort of special power. Like he also did a pact with the Death God, also.
Well, I mean,
Like a
close
different
enough.
Death God. But I didn't know until this moment where it was like, oh, when he spelled out the fact that he used colorlessness on us, I was like, oh, that's clever. I like that.
At which point, then you knew that he had to be you, and you knew if he was a copy of number one, then that means you have to be number one. It's the logic chain.
Well, and the fact that the mystery phantom was Yuma was also a large hint.
Was Yuma. In quotes,
Right, like-
because apparently it was Makoto the whole time.
Correct.
Yes. Yeah, that was a nice touch.
Actually, one thing that I found funny is when you finally break off his mask and you see his face, you're like, maybe that looks like Yuma.
The
I don't know if
eyes.
it's right, the eyes match, but the lack of bangs, right? Because Makoto has the bangs, or Yuma has the bangs, and Makoto has like the huge forehead. I was like, they don't really look that much alike.
It's kind of funny because aside from the hairstyle, everything's the same. And then if you note, Makoto has the big piece of hair that's hanging in the middle of his head, and Yuma, of course, has the question mark.
Right.
You know, the characteristic Danganronpa.
Yep, the question mark.
What is it called? Hair thing. There's a Japanese word for it.
Don't know.
What a weird question this was. Like, who did you steal the identity of?
Oh, that one?
Yeah, the ramen shop guy.
Who gave up their identity as Yuma Koko Head, yeah.
So here's something that's actually a little cheeky. So when they do that flashback with the weird purple and sketchy background, when they show the book, and there's a guy and then it's because it's number one leaving the vault with the book, and that's the first time you see the book. And there's an older guy, and then there's the younger guy, and they go to the younger guy and they say, look, Yuma, it's like, Yuma, that's the number one. Don't you know who this guy is? And it's very cheeky that one.
Who was that? You don't know?
When I was playing through this the first time, this had thrown me off because then I didn't realize the body swap.
Oh, you mean that there was another individual who was actually Yuma?
Yes.
Is that what you mean by body swap? Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that makes much more sense now.
This was when I played through this the first time. I had held on to this cutscene as okay, Yuma's not number one. There's a lot of evidence going towards it, but Yuma is someone else. Which, yes, but also no.
Oh, but this is the scene where they convince. Okay.
They show somebody with a cape walking away.
Right, but that's where there was a lot of.
Yeah, there's mounting evidence at this point. Also, sort of the meta narrative of, Hajime lost his memories. Who's Hajime? Nagito lost his memories. The other Nagito. Who's Nagito? So I'm like, okay, I know where this is going. But then this cutscene spun me out for a while.
Well,
I couldn't talk about it. I couldn't talk about it now because when it came up.
So but what's interesting though is I think when we had the discussion on this, we were already sort of hovering around that being just as plausibly evidence for him being number one.
Yeah,
this pushed me for.
This goes towards what you were saying, Adam, is that collectively you all looked at this scene and says there's more evidence that Yuma is number one than there isn't. But
right.
Playing this by myself, I didn't make this connection. I just said, "Oh, Yuma is this loser." All right, I'll put this on the shelf.
And then this comes immediately before that section with Makoto in the beginning of the next chapter.
Oh yeah,
right.
you not even the beginning of the very, very end of chapter 2 is you wake up and then.
Well, I mean, the beginning of the next chapter where you're talking to him has some revelations that really push it a little bit further.
If I can, Yuma asks some of the silliest questions in the game. And Yuma's like, how do you know I'm number one? Because you have my face, Mikado answered. It was like looking at a reflection. I already know you're number one because of that.
Right, in terms of how Makoto knows.
Yeah, it was kind of silly, in my opinion. It's like, how do you know I'm number one? Because I'm a homunculi of the number one, and you have the same face as me, so yeah.
We both have coalescence.
Well, that's the piece of evidence that the game ends up kind of forcing you to make the connection.
Our eyes both have a circle with a line in it.
Circle with a line in it.
I linked the picture.
They did weird things with pupils in this game.
They do it in all the games.
Yeah, like the different geometric shapes in their eyes. You mean? Yeah.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So, couple other things. So, at least that I wanted to bring up. We hovered around it a little bit, but I'll pivot back to it now. So, the scenario itself, I did find it right. So, kind of again going back to kind of like similarities to like other stories I've heard. Right, like anytime. Right, I feel like when for this type of story they're trying to create like a good old disaster, so to speak, to like. Right, because again, that's sort of the backdrop for it's too much for one person to carry, right? One person can't do it, even if you're the greatest mind in the world, right? You kind of set up this like tragedy, so to speak.
Like the greatest, most horrible.
Right.
Yeah.
The funny thing about that one is they I feel like in that one they use the name more than explaining what it actually is, right? They just give it that kind of over the top title to like.
Yep, this
hammer it
week
home.
this just calls it the blank week mystery, and then tells you exactly what it is.
Right. In this case, they go into like the whole like creation of the homunculus and like all of the things that kind of led to that. But like, how many other storylines are there? Like, I think like Princess Mononoke and stuff like that. Like when you start messing with nature, how it can kind of get out of hand. Like I feel like that's one of those themes that they keep weaving into, it's just part of like an ethic that goes into a lot of these stories, right?
I mean, we've talked about that almost every game that we've played, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true.
Well, it's funny because with Lazard and some of his stuff in Valkyrie Profile, there was actually, it was sort of very similar what he was doing, right? He's kind of playing God, messing around with the creation of life. But it's interesting because, a lot of times, right, it's always the bad guys who kind of do this, kind of like unchecked messing with nature, right? Like, they do it without kind of like a
With no ethic,
counterbalance, right. So you develop the capability before you develop the ethic.
Yep. Well, I mean, the same thing with this. If you think about it, the ethic was flawed to begin with. They wanted immortal soldiers.
Right. And then on top of that, then they contract them, or whether it's contracted or they kind of institute this competition, right? They use this competition to further put in disregard for any, I'll call it bioethical type constraints that would go on it. But it was just funny to me that, the path they went down to try and create like this unwinnable situation, in this case had to do with kind of like, I'll call it the scientific creation of life, right? And like all of the, problems that can go with it. Because it's funny, like I feel like there's like actually stuff in our world that's like very similar, like not even just fiction, right?
We don't have homunculi yet, Adam.
We don't have homunculi, but we have babies born in test tubes and frozen embryos and all sorts of problems like that it's the same sort of thing of like, hey, we can, but should we don't pay.
Well, I mean, the flip side of that is sometimes life finds a way, and sometimes life turns out to be just fine after they're done eating meat buns.
The meat buns are key.
Though, to be perfectly honest, I still say Makoto explains away that meat bun problem pretty well, if you're willing to believe him. And I'm willing to believe him, because he never lied to you the whole time. He might have misled you, he might have took you down a path, but he never lied to you.
Am I wrong in remembering that they said that once they get properly nutritioned, like they properly eat, they are able to start restoring their normal intelligence from there?
I'm not sure about that, though I do believe that the longer you've been, post-mortem... malnourishment is not good, being in the sun is not good, but the longer you've been post-mortem eating and replenishing yourself, it seems to be that most of the... I know John did say they're all at different levels, but it seems to be that the longer it's been, the more capable they've become. For at least the majority of the things that they showed you. But again, they leave that open-ended. All those people in the Forbidden Village or the restricted area, they could be total losses. There's no way to kill them.
There's a disproportionately large number of zombies and mindless people than there are people who have clarity.
True. But I would say that most of those people died a long time ago.
Yeah. So, well,
or did not die as long ago as some of them. Died more recently.
Well, I look at that as that's 3 years worth of bodies.
Well, most of the people they showed you were all people who died recently.
Well, there's like the whole montage, the whole zombie procession. There's all those nameless people who are just Resident Evil zombies. Like we don't know when they died.
You
But
know?
I guess it circles back that it's up to you. So what you said is that it's open ended, and that we
Yep.
can the story does not put emphasis on whether those resurrected have a future.
Also, Makoto never really worked on trying to fix those people. He just had to keep everything running
Yes, because he's only one person.
because he's only one person. So he kind of just shoved them there and said, "Okay, nobody goes there."
Did anybody out so when there's in this research here, right? Don't need to be grown, and they're how do they appear? Like, do they just appear as
When you walk around, when you're doing that walk to the to go talk to Yako, and during the denouncement denouement, there is that weird ass machine with the orange cases,
The pods.
the pods
Yeah.
that look like they're from the Matrix. They inject the science into the pod, and out of the pod comes a homunculus.
Comes people.
Is my interpretation of how this system works.
Yeah, when it says
Yeah,
that they
no.
don't need to be fetuses, what I assume that means is they didn't need to be grown from this to a full person. They just formed as a full person. Which
Or
is
formed as a-
not possible in this world, but
in a fictional world?
it's kind of like, well, no, I mean, even in Star Wars, when they made those clones, they accelerated their aging. So they all were born as, babies, and then accelerated aged.
Yeah. So what I would. Oh, go ahead.
I do enjoy the fact that when they're grown, they have full clothing on. Also,
Yeah, they didn't come out of that place naked.
They left a little goodie bag with an outfit in each of the capsules.
Which they all had the presence of mind to put on as they were raging and breaking
And
down
honestly-
barriers.
yes, and also wearing the same clothing as they're killing themselves. Yes.
As their corresponding person. Exactly. Maybe the clothes were part of the genetic memory.
Yes, the clothes are the part of the skin of the homunculi. Yeah, I agree.
Ah, that could be.
Yeah.
Which
so
is why
this
they
is
have
the
to wear
Matrix of the
raincoats.
Yep, there it is.
There it is. The pod machine. Also, Amaterasu had the worst idea. We can't just get high quality samples. We'll just get everybody. Maybe one of them will work.
This is their desperation.
This is their desperation,
They-
and it's
they
horrible.
wanted-
the competition.
They wanted to brute force the equation because they couldn't figure it out.
Yep. It's horrible.
And that
They
again
deserved
goes back to the that again goes back to the competition, kind of creating an impetus for kind of the unchecked,
Scientific.
right, the ill-advised
Destruction.
experimentation.
But at the end of the day, it's the corporation versus the United Government, and we only took out the corporation. The United Government's still a threat.
I don't think that they took out the corporation at all. I think that what happened was that we influenced Makoto and his people influenced him to be better. And they're as powerful as the United Government, so they're a check on them. So if anything, the world, as I know it's saccharine, but the world is a better place. Though
Yes,
clearly the world is not okay because they show Yuma out there, and that wherever he is effed up.
Yeah, Buffalo, right?
Buffalo, nice.
I during my
never
video
sunny.
recording, I called it Rochester.
I didn't get that far.
It's never sunny.
It's Rochester. No, I
Yeah,
mean, it's Troy
sorry.
then.
Sorry, I'm flipping
Some
around
more.
so much. I'm looking for where they talk
Hanai
about the
Ward is
food.
Troy.
It's not that bad anymore, but it's still a little. Stinky.
People are constantly being killed. It's always cloudy. It's Troy, right? The police are totally corrupt. It's got to be Troy. This was based off of a real place. The names were changed to protect the not so innocent.
Do you remember? Does anyone remember where they talk about the
Needing
needing to
feed?
consume human flesh?
I'm pretty sure it's a note.
That's what I thought too.
I was.
Original memories, individual differences.
And that's about the blood. So then you go down into the
After that, you go down
homunculus
into
pods.
You have the secret. He just talks about the formation of the project in the restricted area. And then he talks about the rise of Makoto, but he doesn't talk about the food, right? The needing of the
It
food.
reminded me a lot of Brother.
Brother.
I
have no clue what you're referencing by brother.
Zero.
Oh, it's the note from the arrow in the very beginning.
Oh, there you go.
So I'm already too far. That explains it.
That wasn't DC Douglas, was it? I don't think so. His voice wasn't deep enough.
Homunculus are predisposed to eating human flesh in order to maintain the artificial organic synthesis in their cells. Currently, there's no alternative sources of nutrition, and they grow sick if they do not consume human flesh. So they just get sick. Partially malnourished specimens will attack any humans on sight, so please do your best to be careful.
Artificial organic synthesis. So does it like provide them some mitochondria? Some cell organelles?
So back on the ramen recipe, I guess there's some implication that the
he figured it out.
Replicate that, artificial, that organic synthesis.
He figured out whatever was missing, whatever they need, and he somehow reverse engineered it without knowing it was human flesh.
And there's kind of the nod to the ending. Currently, there are no alternate sources of nutrition.
And Makoto didn't work too hard to figure it out because he had a huge supply. Answer. Well, he had a huge supply of human flesh.
And especially corrupted, bad people that were going to die by execution anyway. So he's like, make it simple. Everyone, here's a meatball. Meat bread. Have fun.
Which, as the head of the WDO, he clearly had no problem with getting rid of these people anyway. Because he would have gotten rid of them anyway. Well, also, he would have gotten rid of them anyway as the head of the WDO. That was his job.
Whether or not they die, whether or not they had to die is a different question, but
I don't think he cared all that much.
I think they were all criminals set to be executed.
Anybody who's willing to sign a pact with a god of death that will kill people in order to get to the truth and obtain the solution that can make everybody happy doesn't care about killing criminals. Yuma, on the other hand, did because he wasn't that person.
So, is there going to be a Raincoat 2?
Don't know.
They're setting it up to be a Raincoat 2.
They always set it up.
I think it probably depends on fan reaction and if they think they can make money and stuff. That's what it boils down to.
Oh, well, money. Great. Yay.
So
capitalism.
They have to survive. They have to survive this next game that comes out.
Yeah, so a larger context for this dev group is that they broke off and basically have hedged all their bets on making their own stuff.
Okay.
So they're sort of they're in that double A game dev, in that they have a high enough budget that they kind of need money, but because they're by themselves, they're sort of living and dying by what they're making.
So I actually want to return to this, but before going down that thread, are there other story related things that people ended. There was one other that I wanted to bring up, or we could go down the kind of AA and industry type discussion.
No, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
So emergency.
You got a story
exit.
thread.
Oh, yeah.
Oh man, what a callback!
Was anyone expecting this? I was not expecting this.
No, I was not.
No, this is the part where I started to get disappointed with the Disney ending, but yes.
Well, so here's what's interesting about the Disney ending. The only person who doesn't make out in the Disney ending is Shinigami.
It's Shinigami.
The person who you potentially disliked most of the game.
But also,
no,
in the
no.
last act proved just how faithful and good she was.
Right, like the whole "you're not alone" came from Shinigami in this case.
Not just that, all of it.
Yeah, she was annoying, and she could have done things normal, like she said in the beginning of the Mystery Labyrinth. Like,
Oh,
I
that
could have
was
just given
great.
you these keys like normal. I'm like, you could have avoided so much awkwardness with my wife right behind me watching.
I'm glad I did it this way one last time. I could have just given these keys to you normally. That was great. Wait, what do you mean?
There was one statement. This is it right here. And that solves everything, doesn't it? She says, right? Those are pretty much her last words. So basically, all of these problems are getting solved, but she's stuck alone. So in some ways, she shoulders the...
Yeah, she takes Makoto's job.
The necessary tragedy in the ending falls on Shinigami in this case.
But it's implied that she's in the book still.
No. She doesn't know if she goes back to the book or not. She says that.
Well, I mean, she implies, right? She says, yeah, it'll be 1,000 years. It might be another 1,000 years before anyone...
I mean, scroll it back. I mean, there's something where she basically says,
well, no,
I might go back to the book. I don't know. Nobody's done this before. Nobody's taken the door before.
What I'm referring to is the note that Yuma left for Kuromi at the end, when she's on the train, saying, hold on to this book. I'll come back to this when I need it.
That doesn't mean that Shinigami's still...
But, well, the other aspect of the tragedy, though, is he forgets about, like, at least the implication I had is, by breaking the contract, he forgets, just like all of the other people before him forgot, except for Vivia.
Chain of Memories level BS.
Yeah. Well, I never played Chain of Memories, but
the thought that I had with this is he couldn't have forgotten everything since when he got that book, or else he'd have no understanding of any of what happened. I wonder if he just forgot the Mystery Labyrinth stuff. I mean, how does that even work?
Yeah, they did say that they break the contract and you'll forget all the Mystery Labyrinth stuff.
Like he could forget her and the Mystery Labyrinth, but if he forgets all of the stuff that happened in Kanai Ward, how does he even change enough to go forward? You know what I mean?
Yeah, he left a note for Garami, so he definitely remembers. So
why would he leave a note for Kurumi? Exactly.
Yeah,
it doesn't.
Yeah, this is also why. Look, again, I immediately went to Chain of Memories. Not to spoil the game, but the Chain of Memories, as the title implies, as you play through the game, Sora's memories are being manipulated, and there becomes a plot point about him remembering or forgetting people, and because this is Kingdom Hearts, Sora's just like, I'll never forget my friends, even if somebody makes me forget. And it's like, okay, anime.
Right. So this is where she says she's not sure whether she'll survive or not.
Yeah.
I can either return or vanish. I don't know.
I'm not
no
sure.
one's ever done this before.
Yeah.
Right? Because the next line she says... Right, so essentially...
It's pretty brutal.
She shoulders the only tragedy that they decide to throw into the ending. And it's funny because, right, you got the thank you, and then her last words struck me. And actually not the first time, it was the second time rewatching when she says, and that solves everything, doesn't it? Just kind of struck me. right? Because she's the only one who she drew the short end of the stick.
アレ様ちゃん、ぼっちには慣れっこだし。これで、ふわっと解決。だよね。
Right, and I don't know Japanese well, but I interpreted that Dayone as kind of like an upbeat, or like it's her trying to like be upbeat and whatnot. But I just wanted to, like I said, bring that up because I didn't like Shinigami much throughout the story, and I didn't feel super bad for her, but she was the one who got the short end of the stick in the ending. Like everything goes Disney except for her. So
By the end of it, I think she turned it around.
yeah,
I actually
think
felt
that's-
bad for her.
but I think that's what they were going for.
Yeah. She was a faithful companion.
Yes.
Speaking about faithful companion, the part where Yuma is like, "All right, well, despair I go, jump down the pit," and then she comes after him, banging on the door to then break his back and his neck. I guess during that matching scene.
What's funny? This is the we had talked about this some before, but this is the scene I labeled "You're Not Alone." I called it Hitori Janai because
the back snapping scene, yes.
yeah. They took kind of like a dark, twisted turn on it and how she breaks his back, right? But the essence of it is the "You're not alone." You're not alone. Oh, wait, the glow?
Yeah, she's glowing, and then she's and you're going from like a dark shade to a brighter look.
Slap to the face because he did. So she kind of takes the brunt of it at the end, right? He rejects her.
Yep.
She's the one that gets the short end. So interesting that, and I was not expecting that. For all of the stuff I did foresee about the case, the ending was not what I expected. In A, how upbeat it was, and B, how she was the one.
So
who kind of
there was a forking choice at the end,
That
but I
didn't
don't think
matter.
it mattered at all. Yeah.
It was good because Snooty picked the other one than I did.
Oh, which one did he pick?
Oh,
He picked Collapse the Shadow Labyrinth, and I picked Stay.
I see.
And so what happens is basically the choice in the matter is a big moral, but basically what happens is you destroy the Shadow Labyrinth by letting him free, or you stay in the Shadow Labyrinth
And let him destroy it.
and let him destroy it.
Same difference.
After you pick, I called this video a third option because after you pick, right? Because I picked the same one as Snooty. I had almost no. I don't. Maybe it says something about the player in this case, like which one they choose. But I had no inclination to choose the stay in the labyrinth.
I chose Destroy the Labyrinth because, a whole world of homunculi doesn't seem really damn safe, doesn't it, guys?
Well, that's kind of where I was too. And that
Maybe
goes to
just bomb the shit out of this place. Let's go.
So, I also chose Destroy the Labyrinth. I realized that if it actually went through with it, I don't think that the rest of the people would be destroyed. And even if they were, all you're making is zombies. Not all that effective. But if Makoto was to be killed, he would just come right back to life within one day. It had no real effect. He was a perfect homunculus.
Oh shit, you're right. Don't give me that face. I'm admitting that you're right.
So my thought was, the worst case scenario here is, because I don't think that they were going to kill all of Kanai Ward. I think that the target was Makoto because he was the one who specifically...
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Makoto is the culprit.
But
Exactly.
I think Yuma thought that and said, no, he's a UG perfect homunculi. I can't kill him. I'm going to convince him to now break the labyrinth by himself. And because, yeah,
But it was the stupidest decision ever to stay in the labyrinth himself. Because
exactly.
he literally could have killed him, waited a day, and then talked it out with him in the
What
real
happened?
world.
Yeah.
Oh, that's...
Wait.
I-
I'm not sure I followed. Say that again.
Being a perfect homunculus, Makoto, if his soul was reaped, if he was murdered in this labyrinth, would come back to life, and then in one day he would be repaired.
Oh, you're saying as a homunculus.
It's a perfect
Right.
homunculus.
As a perfect
Yeah.
homunculus,
It's
and
because-
his memory would be intact, he wouldn't go crazy.
Perfect soldier. But again, what they were going for was the third option. Well, by either staying or destroying, you're taking it on yourself. But the third solution is let everyone else decide. That is the real perfect solution here.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
Which-
again, thematically, what they were going for, the choice didn't matter because
It was
what ended
never
up
a
happening
choice.
is neither of those choices.
Yeah. The choice was for the player, not for the story.
Right.
Though the choice of Yuma staying in the labyrinth and then having to use the door makes no sense. When there is a
You only say-
perfectly viable solution that only involves killing somebody who's immortal and who will come right back to life. And not staying inside the labyrinth.
Staying inside the labyrinth is a show of trust to Makoto,
I understand
Mm-hmm.
this.
and
And you might even argue that was his way to try and convince Makoto.
But if there was no emergency exit, it would have yielded Yuma's death.
That was the point of Yuma compelling to Mikado, though, saying, hey,
I
I will kill myself.
understand. I understand that. I
Except
think that
I'm the other side.
there is no reason except for a willingness to kill yourself to make that choice if you actually do have the world's best brain and realize with all of the facts that you had that he will literally be reborn instantaneously.
But he also didn't forget about the emergency exit until just right then.
wasn't aware the exit existed.
And where the big price
It was a Deus
was.
Ex Machina. It came out of nowhere.
Except they alluded to it back in the one dungeon.
Exactly. They
Yeah.
alluded to it. But
And
it was a
then what's
Deus
the
Ex
big price?
Machina. Of course. And Shinigami pays the price in the end. She might not exist anymore, when really all you had to do was off Makoto, who would then come back.
Makes sense, yeah.
But they didn't want to go that way. It wasn't going to fit the
Well,
moral of the
thematic.
story. Yeah.
Right, and
So
go ahead.
So, the number one, the smartest brain in the world, may have made that deduction. Yuma is not, because he doesn't have the memories.
Well, the good thing is that the player made that deduction.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, this is the disconnect, as Snooty is so swift to point out, that Yuma is fucking stupid.
Whereas one of us has the greatest brain in the world, but it's not you.
But again, even his being slow on the uptake, I'll say, is like that's servicing the thematic element they're going for, which is, hey, when you're kind of reborn without your memories, you have to trust and rely as opposed to take action and do. Right? It is very much this having to rely on others, right?
And then this leads into the collective reservations, I'll say, about the epilogue and how it was. And so, like, this is probably the point where they start going more towards, here are our themes, we are executing on the morality of it, rather than you could just kill him, he's a homunculus, who cares?
This is where they make that choice.
Well, because you can almost think of it as like this is the consummation of his rebirth, right? Like, whereas by turning around and killing him in cold blood or whatever, right, would kind of undo the growth he made. As
It's not cold blood.
Pink blood.
He would know it's pink blood, nice. He would know exactly what you're doing, and you would tell him, I have to end this mystery labyrinth. You'll be back, don't worry.
There was also a battle of ideals going on, and so to say everything that you said is true. And one potential argument is that by killing Makoto in the mystery labyrinth, you're proving that you are correct, and then Makoto may not be so inclined to do what he did in the epilogue.
That's true.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
that's the converting him. Right. You convert him through
Yes.
your actions type thing. Yeah.
This is
Well, I mean, the answer also could be, I don't want to die, and this is the only way out of here, and it's going to not affect you at all. And as the smartest person in the world, he'd be like, you're right.
But I think that's, again, some of they're going for is he's willing to die. He's always been willing to die for the perfect solution. It's just not right. Because
I agree. I just don't.
Taking on the book.
I also did not like. I also did not like the epilogue of this, but for different reasons than you guys didn't like the epilogue.
Why didn't you like it?
I'm perfectly fine with the saccharine bullshit. Fine, it's okay. I'm not fine with. I'm okay with it. I accept it. Okay. It is bullshit. I accept it. What I'm not fine with is the choice that ultimately, the fact that you had no choice. I don't like that.
Oh, the fact that they gave you the choice and it didn't matter?
Yep.
Oh. Well, that was an easy problem to fix. Just don't give the player the choice.
Yeah, just don't give the player the choice. I would have been better with that.
Like, in some ways, I really do think it was more a getting the player to reflect on their own values, right? If you don't give them the choice, then the player isn't forced to choose.
I agree. But if you're going to make them choose, make the choice impactful. Exactly.
Yep.
Yeah. Well,
and then have there be a reason behind making the choice as well. Not just, I don't care.
But that gets back to, if you recall kind of the essence of some of the complaints we had about the epilogue early on, right? It was sort of, it felt cheap. I think in this case, you feel cheapened just by a different aspect.
Correct. That's what I'm saying. I'm okay with the saccharine. I'm okay with the saccharine bullshit. Fine, they want to go that way. I'm okay. I can accept that as a story. What I have a bigger problem with is robbing that level of agency from the player while exposing it as a choice.
You wanted the dark ending.
No, I wanted there to
be a choice of an ending.
You wanted a choice for a dark ending.
I don't necessarily think that collapsing the dungeon would have been a dark ending, as I just laid out my reason.
Yes. No, that's fair. But
it's not like I wanted to see the world go to hell.
Way.
They could have. And then you would have the ability to go back. I made a save at that point so I could see what the other one was, and I did, and I was disappointed.
Yes.
It reminds me of the exact opposite of what, like, Star Wars The Old Republic, or not The Old Republic, Knights of the Old Republic did, where you could live your life as the worst Sith bastard, the whole game, and then choose to go light side. But at least you got to see a light side ending. Or you could be the best person and choose to go Sith. But at least you got to see a Sith ending. You know what I mean? Your choice mattered.
You wanted multiple endings, regardless of what the content was.
Or no multiple endings, or one ending. I'm fine with that.
If you give the players a choice at the end, and you hand them a gun and say you got to shoot the bad guy. If you say I want to shoot the bad guy should die. Whether or not that's right or wrong or good ending or bad ending, it's the
or the real ending.
Yeah.
Yeah. As opposed to VLR, where they cut it off as you're about to shoot the bad guy. Right? Isn't that the end of not VLR? Zero Time
Dilemma. Yeah,
where you get the choice to kill or save the bad guy, and you make a choice and never see what happens.
Cheeky bastard.
I still remember that. I still think that's a horrible way to end it.
I totally don't remember that.
Brother.
It's that kind of thing that gets to me, and they did it in this game, and That bothered me.
Triggered you.
Well,
Well, it was the epitome of here's your cliffhanger to a game that
will never receive a follow-up.
Yeah.
Which is potentially true for this as well.
I would honest. I want there to be a sequel to this, but I would be shocked if they come back.
I agree.
Yeah.
That's why I was so concerned about, like, is there going to be a sequel? They set it up so hard to be a sequel at the end that I'm like, I need closure for my characters.
This reminds me of what they also monetized a whole bunch of side stories that came with this version of the game, which is kind of cool. I didn't play any of them yet. But that also was a death knell for Final Fantasy 15. Take a bunch of the side stories and put them in DLC.
So here's what's funny about the Final Fantasy 15 thing, because I don't know, I haven't played any of them, but what I've heard about those is they're actually kind of like impactful and provide like real context to the story.
Yep.
Whereas in this case, they're just like truly guidance. So
are they truly side stories?
I haven't done
enough. Or do they sock it into
one of them.
Oh, okay. I didn't know if they socketed into the normal story, like this is what's going on with your friends while you're doing what you're doing.
Yeah, I only started one of them, so I can't attest for sure.
I see.
But
I always get rubbed the wrong way when they do that stuff.
Well, that's just monetization is really all that is, right?
Well, it's monetization, but it also, you take a narrative-heavy game and then you do that to a narrative-heavy game. It's like cutting up your plot.
But that's no different than making a fighting game and balancing it around 15 characters and only giving you 10 to start. And then each of the next.
Well, that's really bad.
But that's monetization. That's what it is, right?
Just sell us the game for $40 more.
It's a.
And if given the choice to buy, I'm the anti-John in this regard. If given the choice to buy the season pass, which says it's going to have the rest of the damn content, I just do it then. If I'm going to buy the damn game, I just do it.
But so we're definitely pivoting into industry here. But so like Tekken 8, you could pull the stuff that Tekken 8 did. Did you hear about that?
I have no idea.
So in Tekken 8, people who bought the season pass. About halfway through the first season, they released a new stage. Wasn't part of the season pass.
That's disgusting.
And if you went back and read the description of the season pass, it was vague enough.
It implied that?
It was just vague, and it didn't imply that it was all content or something like that. And they totally kind of...
That would be the last time that I trust them.
I think the backlash was pretty big on that one. But...
Who's Tekken? PlayStation?
Namco.
Namco. That would be the last time that I trust Namco. Well, then again, it's Namco. Never mind. I don't trust them anymore.
It's both PlayStation and Steam.
No, what I'm saying is Namco. Do you trust Namco anymore?
I don't know. I was never a big Namco guy ever anyway, I don't think.
They've had some interesting business decisions. I mean, it's like trying to trust...
Once they ditched Soul Calibur, I was done.
There you go.
Which actually had its own problems, but we're going.
True.
So let's go back to the AA thing, right? So I have very mixed feelings about this game as a new IP because like the development span on it was pretty long. I really feel like they put a lot into the world building, giving it a unique visual identity, which I do think they succeeded on to some degree.
I'd agree.
Right?
I agree. Yeah, this game was definitely like a good 8 out of 10 to me. I really loved how developed the world was.
All the neon.
But what's interesting is when I compare it to the Dangan series, some of the decisions that they made to make it more amenable to like the world building and stuff like that, I think impacted the storytelling to some degree too, right? Like we've observed, I think we even said it before, like the Dangan setup of, right, 16 people, it's one of them, right? It just creates a very different dynamic. In my recollection, and maybe some of this is just we played it together, we fed off each other, but I felt this game was easier in a not good way. I don't necessarily mean figuring it out. I mean, like, the gameplay mechanics specifically felt so generic and inconsequential. Right. In the chat earlier today, Pete, you even mentioned, like, hey, next game should be something with a little more involvement. I didn't feel the same way about Dangan as I did about this in terms of, like, level of involvement, because I think the user interaction in this one was mainly in the exploring of the ward, right? Kind of leaning into that visual identity. And that's a decision they made, and that's where they kind of put the resources. But it left the gameplay mechanics just feeling weak to me.
You had QTEs and then the stuff in the labyrinth.
And the stuff in the labyrinth, if you compare it to, I'll call it the
Danganronpa trials. Yeah,
it's less tax. It's less demanding on the player as a game mechanic, right? Like,
there's more investigation in Danganronpa than there is in this game ever.
Well, it did feel like your hand was being held a lot during this game.
So, like, when I think of, like, when you have, like, the round circle debates, whatever they're called in Danganronpa, particularly when they add in, like, the noise and whatnot, right? Like, sometimes you're making this decision, do I shoot the noise or do I try and clip the corner of the statement with the truth bullet, right? Like, there's interesting dynamics to this. This one is literally just timing. And you don't even have to engage in that if you don't want. This one is just like, wait for it and then wait till the last possible second, go. Last possible second, go. And that's the only extra layer of challenge they add. So, like, as a gameplay mechanic, it just felt less developed, weaker, more simplified, demands less from the player, whatever phrase you want to use. And while I really like and applaud that they kind of went for a new thing away from Dang and they kind of gave it its own unique visual identity, I worry that they spent so much on that the gameplay itself suffered. Because as a AA title, you can only put, right, limited resources, right? And so the choice they made there.
RDM was definitely weaker than PTA.
Yes, PTA was different. PTA was the rhythm game at the end.
What was it called?
Argument, I think. The tracks were just called Argument. Solar Edition.
Yeah, the stuff where you had to shoot down arguments.
Yeah. So I that was just kind of the soapbox rant I wanted to
and then you had the barrel as a replacement for another one of the mechanics. I'm just like, this barrel thing is the worst thing ever.
Mini games were not as good. No brain drivers.
No brain drivers.
As someone that's new to this, I agree that the mini games aspect during the Mystery Labyrinth were frustrating at some times to just like painfully obvious answers, like the pink blood. So, like, it was just like, to me, as a new person to this whole genre, I'd say it was all right. It wasn't terrible, but I wasn't
terrible.
I agree.
It's perfectly serviceable.
Exactly.
Something I was pondering today. So all the leveling up and stuff was there to make the game easier and to remove mechanics, which has a strange implication that the mechanics are in the way and that you shouldn't engage with them.
It's all about the story, right?
Yeah. The inverse is something that Supergiant Games does that I absolutely love, and that you can opt into making it harder.
That might have been a better choice for them.
And so like, if you started out with like a slower barrel with things knocked away, Pete getting flash banged, and then you're like, well, I want this, like, the only way to get a SS rating is to crank that,
make it hard
up, and then you have to do all the dodging, and then you have to do this. Otherwise, here's your A for attending the trial.
And I think you're hitting on kind of I think essentially that's very similar to what I was saying about there's nothing that ever demands the
Correct.
player anything from the player, even if they want something to be demanded of them. There's
Yeah,
no
engagement. Engagement is not something that they really pull out of you.
And meanwhile, in RDM, it's tedious to the point that if you don't know what statement you need to counter with the particular solution key, that means you need to dodge everything every time. It's not. It's less fun.
Yeah. So I what I was going to say is I do think that this is a trend in game design these days, though, right? Like worrying more about the visual presentation and kind of the visual identity and other things. And like I said, to their credit, I think they did a much better job than a lot of IPs out there, right? Like I see, because I don't actually invest in newer games that much these days, but I just look at things and I'm just like, it looks so expected, right? Like when I compare, I'll give you maybe a controversial example. When I compare Wind Waker to Twilight Princess, to me, Twilight Princess is so much more expected. Conventional. Yeah. Like, whereas Wind Waker, like some people, like I remember
it was Ben I remember that stuff too. Oh my God, they hated it.
But I
loved it.
Liked it. Wind Waker is probably my favorite Zelda Link to the Past, maybe. I don't know. It's definitely my favorite 3D Zelda to this day. Granted, I didn't play Skyward Sword.
You haven't played the new ones either, have you?
Tears. Nope, never played any of those.
And they're cell shaded.
But they're like, is that like there's that visual identity that I think a lot of games don't get that this did. Like I think this game got that. And kudos to them for doing that well. I just worry that it was at the expense of better fleshing out
gameplay. I would argue that gameplay is the weakest point of all of this game. No matter how much I might complain about what they just did at the end, I do think the story was great.
Mm-hmm.
Everything was well foreshadowed. It left you guessing, unless you really just pulled everything together. It was a good story. It was as good as some of the Danganronpa.
For me, the story was top notch. I love the story, especially the beginning like the beginning, chapter 1, where everyone died.
Amaterasu Express was such a good, powerful hook.
What a powerful beginning! Yeah. I agree.
Yeah, World's End Club does this too. I think I made this correction before.
Oh my God, the first 2 hours of World's End Club.
Oh my! It's some of the best stuff that's out there. Because
it's another death game.
Yeah, I have trouble recommending World's End Club unless you're really, really looking for this type of game.
Yeah.
It's a net positive, but not by much.
First 2 hours, last 2 hours. Yeah. So interestingly, I didn't play it, but there's a YouTuber I follow. There was an action game that came out in the past year called Stellar Blade.
I've heard of that game.
And what he said about it is like the beginning is decent. The end, they ramp it up, but then there's like 20 to 30 hours of just garbage in the middle. It's like filler. It's sequences where you're just riding an elevator and waiting. And it's almost like there's this notion that particularly for like a bigger budget title, you need content. And so rather than having quality content, they just stuff in content for the sake of content and sandwich it between a really strong opening and a decently strong ending.
That sucks.
Right? You have that strong hook and stuff finally picks up at the end. But then in the middle, it's just like this vacuous space of like, ugh, what am I doing with
It's got to last 50 hours, man.
Right.
If I may compare it also to what am I saying? Resident Evil. I'm talking about Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, the second chapter.
Oh God!
Watching Flame play that game, I felt the exhaustion of just all the content that was in there, of all the mini games that you had to do. Why are dolphins here now?
Like this is the argument with, you had mentioned Horizon. You could say Horizon is one of those games, but you don't have to do all that stuff. Rebirth made you feel like you had to do it. A lot of these games make you feel like you had to do it. Stellar Blade, I believe they mentioned it was like Nier Automata. But if you just described it as that is not what Nier Automata was at all. It made you replay the game 3 times, all with different context, but it never was 20 hours of a slog that you just wanted to kill yourself.
Yeah, no, it's basically like content, and you put all the resources and investment into a really strong thing that gets people interested, particularly for a new IP, right? And then you want to leave them with a strong ending to feel like it was a good experience. But then if it's like, crap, I've spent 80% of my budget and I only have 20% of the game I want, what's the other 80% going to be? Filler. It's just going to be filler, right? It's just padding. And so, right,
That's
like
sad.
there's kind of these industry trends. And so I think there really is a place for kind of like these AA type titles. Although I would even say this game did not need Case 3. Maybe didn't even need Case 2.
They were
Case
actually...
2 Resistance, Case 2 was the play.
Yeah.
Play. Oh, yeah. Let me put it this way. They could have gotten rid of the priest, and they could have gotten rid of Icardi, and it would have been a net sum 0 or even better game, in my opinion.
As long as they worked the overarching story into everything else, it would have been fine. Which they probably could have.
Yeah. So I guess on the topic of that, there was talk when we were talking about the church case, and it felt sort of like random and out there. And I think it was Maria who was just like, I wonder if sort of the themes of the church will become relevant later. So now maybe you have context to see that they were doing world building about how people are kind of a little bit strange and potentially homicidal under the right circumstances. And now I don't know if that is enough to make the entire case there. I think that they sat down and they said, Danganronpa has 6 cases, so we need there to be 6 cases.
You got it.
And so I think that is, and so to your point, Adam, maybe some of this was padding, maybe wasn't. I think it does speak to the strength of the story, that there were high points and low points, but at least it was interesting.
Yeah, I mean, you couldn't say that this game did not have a good story.
And my suspicion is that the sub-stories, unfortunately we started with Desahiko, which is probably the worst one to start with. But my suspicion is they probably only add world building, if anything. And that's where I go back to kind of, the beginning of my whole argument was that really seems to be where the investment was in this game, as opposed to the gameplay mechanics. But I would love to remind developers that video games, yes, they're an art form. Yes, they're great for storytelling. But what is unique and different about them is the way that they
have
engage
gameplay.
The player. Right. They have gameplay. And I think that's part of, Pete, why you were so disappointed in the non-choice at the end.
Mm-hmm.
Because
that's part of a game.
It's not an anime. It's a game.
Correct. And I'd be fine if there was no choice. Right. I wouldn't have that argument at all. If you just wanted to tell me a story, we've made it to the end, and you don't offer me a choice, and you just tell me a story, that's fine. Yeah. But they gave you a choice that wasn't a choice. I mean, why bother?
Yeah, I think this is an interesting, I'll use the phrase, combination of Danganronpa and industry forces, right? Like you can see the Persona influence right there. Because I would even call Persona like a AA title, right? If you really think about its gameplay loop and its level of bombasticness, right? A lot of reuse, like whether it's Tartarus in P3 or whether it's the subway in P5, a lot of reuse. The gameplay loop is amenable to using the same environments, right? There's just less investment in kind of the bombastic.
The money goes into the story. The money goes in. The money goes in, well, and with Persona, at least they have a very strong fundamental system that's been honed over the course of
20 years.
Wow, a long time. Yeah.
Yeah, but the gameplay loop is it's a very clever way to allow a lot of reuse, right?
Exactly.
And so from a budget perspective, I think they can make it for cheaper than something like, I'll throw out Final Fantasy 13 because the only reason I'm going to 13 is because I haven't played 15 or 16. But like, if you look at Final Fantasy 13, the number one thing I remember, the most memorable thing for me in Final Fantasy 13 is when you first go to Lake
Brescia.
I forget. Brescia. And it's just like the frozen, like in the visual,
crystalline,
kind of like,
yeah, beautiful.
Yeah, like the crystalline lake. That's the only thing, like positive thing I remember from Final Fantasy. I'm sure there were other things about the game that I liked, but right, Final Fantasy is kind of going for this more like wow factor. They're like,
AAA.
That's a bigger budget.
And they've been AAA since 12.
I would say 10.
Maybe 10.
First fully voice acted game, I would say 10.
Yeah.
But 11's kind of the wild card because they tried the MMO thing. But like,
that's definitely AAA anytime you have an MMO.
Yeah. So just again, interesting combination of kind of like Danganronpa, which was truly experimental and actually made for handhelds. PSP was the original. And kind of modern game expectations, exploring, world building, visual identity. I think they nailed some of it, but I think some of it's just a product of its time in a bad way.
Things have moved on to the point where things need to take forever. I think that a worthwhile message to any developer is you don't need to pad. You can do world building, but you definitely don't need to pad. You can have a good experience in 15 hours.
And what's funny about the whole world building thing is when I think of like stuff that people really get excited about the lore of, it's stuff like Dark Souls, where like the narrative tells you nothing and you can either dive into the lore or not, right?
And that's a slippery slope because there's people like me that absolutely like kind of dig it, but most of the time it's just annoying to try to learn it.
Dark Souls is sort of a rabbit hole. I would say that their storytelling is something that they do with their entire gameplay, which is focused on community engagement.
Exactly. It requires this meta online.
Its focus on everybody coming together to figure out what's going on is it is not entirely because of subtle storytelling. It's because of the nature of the game and the genre itself. So
interesting. I've never played any of them, so this is an outside perception of it.
You've played Bloodborne. So Bloodborne is Cthulhu Victorian Dark Souls. So you at least have a context. So like there's in Bloodborne, like there's a lot of what's Yharnam? What is the Blood Church? What is the Healing Church? What's going on with all the old blood? Fear the old blood. All this stuff in the background. What happens is that you have the entire community just goes apeshit. They read all of the descriptions of the items.
To try to put it all together.
And they put it all together. Don't get me wrong.
It makes amazing YouTube videos, and there's a proper group of YouTubers that do it that spell it out for you like you're me, and from there it's beautiful.
Go on.
I was going to say the problem is that is not really a story, like the way that Master Detective Archives crafts a story and presents it to you.
Correct. It is not. It is neither better or worse. It is a different approach and a different design structure in terms of how they convey the narrative.
In essence, it's a set of dictionaries that you need to read through to understand terms and put them together to understand the story in context of what you've seen with the game.
So, but I think, the point though that I think I was getting at is, and I think Bloodborne's a great example of this. I don't like Lovecraft stuff at all. Like, it's just never been my thing. Like, it's just a, aesthetic that doesn't appeal to me. Nonetheless, I enjoyed Bloodborne from a gameplay perspective alone. Like, I didn't get into any of the what's going on. Like,
It was just the next thing to kill.
Right. The most hidden ending, about the one of like being reborn as like the elder god yourself or whatever, like is going on. Yeah, the baby slug. Right, like that one. You could when I got that, I was like, I have
what the hell just happened?
I have no clue what's going on, and I don't really care either. But what I did like about the game is, at least early on, later on it got a little easier because there's certain like once you get used to the strategy that the game's getting you to do from a combat perspective, it became a little easier. But the challenging combat and just the gameplay, like it's strong from a gameplay perspective, and it rests on its own, independent of the world building. That's sort of more the angle I was coming from, where I say, hey, from a developer perspective, right? Like, and I think this emphasizes your point, Pete, is, investing a lot in the world is a dangerous thing, because as a medium, I don't want to say as an art form, as a medium, the appeal of games is that they are games, first and foremost, because otherwise you could have done it as something else.
Here's a good example. Blaze Blue. It's a fighting game. They also tell you stories. If you play the narrative, that's a game. Where the gameplay only furthers the narrative. It's great. I love those games. It's a visual novel with fighting game interludes, basically.
My only gripe with the stories there is it has the typical fighting game problem of, because you get to pick who you play as, like certain events have different outcomes.
What's real and what's real and what isn't. Also, if you lose, it can change. Of course, yeah. But I mean, it's a good example of they made a game that primarily focuses around the gameplay.
Yeah, no, definitely.
As opposed to the walking simulators that I know John's decried walking simulators, right? With the exception of that one that you just played, Observer.
Observer was good. I played another one called Mouthwashing, which is more of a walking simulator than Observer was.
Interesting.
So let me ask a question now. Would you call this game a walking simulator?
No. It has too much gameplay.
The walking simulator is in pieces. Like, there are those sequences during the Mystery Labyrinth where you literally just push forward and then people talk, and then the Mystery Labyrinth does cool, trippy things that are fun. Like that is, there is no distinction between pushing forward and just
not pushing forward.
And not pushing forward. That is there are some games, and my main grievance, which is very subjective and, my personal opinion, which has no reflection on what people should or shouldn't do with their time, is that if the entire game is holding the forward button, it's not a game.
Not really.
It is an interactive book that you are reading.
Yes.
It's basically a visual novel where you don't have to read it at all. It's watching a movie where you're walking through it.
And that's more or less what Steins Gate is, by the way. Games like Steins Gate.
It is mostly a visual novel. Yeah.
It's 999 without the escape rooms, which is
correct.
Basically which is the only gameplay element of 999, right?
But that's a visual novel.
Yeah, and that's fine. It's fine. Again, this is not a saying that this is objectively good or bad, and it's more of the presentation, I suppose. So, like, a visual novel is,
you know what you're getting.
Yep. Sit down, push A when people talk, and then you go on to the next dialogue, and then there'll be and then it's like story and gameplay are typically also in separate rooms.
Yeah, if there is any gameplay, the gameplay is
any gameplay at all.
Segmented off. Yep.
All that said, and it sounds like I'm complaining, I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
No,
it's
you're
just
not
that I have
complaining.
gripes.
We all understand.
I think we're all in the same place.
Yeah, we all.
I am looking
Like-
forward. I will plug this again because again, if Tokyo Games does not sell this next game, they will probably die. I will plug Last Defense Academy, which comes out in 24 days.
So, for me, very bummed it's not PlayStation. Because Switch can't handle these.
Your
Unreal
PC
games.
might be able to handle it with how limited it is.
Well, I don't know. Like, Rain Code really taxed the Switch, and the Switch.
Well, no,
Like-
Raincoat tax the Switch is not a. Really?
The Switch is just one step above a Game Boy Advance, to be honest.
But I'm not sure my PC is any better, though, is what I'm saying.
I will look up the qualifications for what Last Defense Academy, but from what I played, it was not a very taxing game.
It one thing that appeals to me is it's been a long time since I played a tactical RPG, and I never liked the genre mechanics. However, one thing that I think has going for it that I now have a much bigger appreciation of, it incorporates spacing into the combat. Like most RPG combat, spacing doesn't matter. And when it comes to things like Grandia, I really liked how Grandia dealt with spacing. Like there are games that involve spacing that I have liked. So I've actually been interested in going back and retrying another tactical
FFT
RPG. So maybe
is a
that's the
good
right one.
option.
Oh, it's been a long time since I played that one. But I still remember some of the main story beats on that one because I just liked the story so much, even though I only ever played it once.
Yeah, what a good game. I haven't played it in a long time either.
So I'm looking at Last Defense Academy right now. Well, look at that. Hellmouth is the protagonist this time.
All their characters look similar. All their
there's a bit
characters look similar.
Yeah, in time you'll be like, oh, this is a little bit of this and that. After you play through, there's gonna be a moment in Danganronpa that you may have this going backward. There for a few
Where you're like,
characters.
Shinigami looks like.
Yep, and you're just like, oh,
Especially.
you look like this. No Mondo, but there's only one Mondo.
There's only one Mondo in this world.
Kurumi looks
Not
like
room-
Chiaki. I think Kurumi and Chiaki have similarities.
Yeah, it's
Yep.
very similar.
Absolutely.
And then
Yuma looks like Hiyoko.
there's obviously the Sonya and Fubuki one. That one's blatant.
Oh, Lord. They might not look the same, but they act the same.
So, and I don't think I have
Yasuhiko
much
looks
else.
like nobody else. And that's a good thing.
I wanted to like him. Like when I first saw the characters, I wanted to like him, but he sucked.
He's the Kazuichi from Danganronpa 2.
Even his gumshoe gab. Ugh. Did you
Oh,
guys
I
do the
did-
gumshoe?
I didn't do hardly any of those. I really should do those before I drop this game.
The only one I liked was Yako's.
That's sad.
I didn't mind Fubuki's. So my order would be Yako, Fubuki, Halara, Vivia, and
Oh, Vivia that low?
I didn't. It didn't do anything for me. Like it wasn't. I felt like I knew it all. Right? Like it was one of those things. Like there was no like interesting moral or perspective. Like the reason I loved the Yako one is that I didn't like most of it, but at the very end, he basically throws at Yuma like, "This is what a man is," and I just really liked his spin on it and like his interpretation, and it made me like the whole sequence. But like Desahiko's like "You're gonna be my bro, right? My men." If you played in Japanese, he always says "my men," like it's one of those katakana like English things they throw in.
Oh, he says it in English.
Yeah, like in Japanese, he always says
My men.
My men.
Wow.
Oh, it's English.
Oh,
Yeah.
no.
And he does it throughout the game too. It's not just in the gumshoe gab, but at the end of the gumshoe gab,
Yasuhiko.
it's just like him being like, "Yo, you're my bro, right?" and that's like, this is just lame. Because I don't even like him as a character.
I'm glad I played this in English rather than having to hear him English my men all the
I want
time.
to go back and hear him say "my men" now.
Oh,
Hang
Lord.
on,
I'm here. Hang on.
I gotta find it.
You'll find it.
The one I'm thinking of is Rooftop.
His character design is cool. He reminds me of Nier from Death Note. Just the little guy who's like unkempt, ruffled, that hair.
He looks like a Pikachu to me.
And I know that he looks like a Pikachu to you guys.
Oh, because of the cheeks.
And the fact that he shoots electric when he gets worked up.
You want to say that again?
He shoots electric when he gets worked up.
His name is Thunderbolt.
It's Thunderbolt Desahiko. My man.
I'm not sure I'm gonna be able to find it, but it was all about like him being a bro. Oh, here we go.
スターに一番必要な
要素ってとこなあところでマイメンおめ
Did you hear it?
My man.
My man.
えはスタところ
Oh, Lord.
おめえはスターに一
So it was just like the gumshoe gap did nothing for me.
Oh,
Go see mom. I think she's up there. Oh, you're thirsty?
it's time.
I'll be. Yeah. But anyway, gumshoe gaps not really that worthwhile.
Can I sit here
You can sit there.
and give me water?
I'll get you water in